is low literacy. I'm just start talking. So just consider literacy as a summary of your skills of reading, writing, mathematics, language understanding, and basically, you're familiar with that. So these are the scale of level 1 to 3, elementary, secondary 2. And basically, this scale is very limited in itself because it doesn't. Thank you. It doesn't reflect in the end low literacy skills beyond elementary school level. So there was a study in 2010 and found out there are like 5 levels below PISA literacy level 1, and this goes down to even single words in terms of competencies, being able to decipher single words or something. And now, where we are looking at in our projects is the German workforce. So, because this is where low literacy has a big impact. And basically, that's people in age of 18 to 65. And it is estimated to be 6.2 million people in Germany, in the German workforce, being affected by that, being affected by low literacy. And that means at that point they're not capable of handling everyday situations because the low literacy level restricts them from participating in society or, for example, causing safety issues at work or something like this. And mostly this is part in supportive workers, assistant workers, and we also identified certain sectors where this is concentrated, like nursing, in certain industrial jobs, the food processing industry, and construction work. And consider one thing, this is not about people with immigration status, this is about people that were in the German school system that had some kind of education, okay? And basically, we had this project going on how can we improve that. Sorry, one thing, the trend is stable, so don't expect this to decline in the next years. We formed a group from the University of Bremen and the Pädagogische Hochschule in Weingarten to tackle all that from multiple viewpoints. So consider this. There is a competency model, because this competency model existed before our project. That was what I was talking about, these 5 scales of literacy below PISA level 1. And this competency model is used in the Volkshochschulen, for example, to help diagnose and then improve someone's literacy level, but they did it with pen and paper. Yeah, perfect use case for digitalization. So what we did is we used that competency model, created a back end in order to build a lot of tasks, units, sets of units, and so on, and try to map all these competencies to these units. Lots of language researchers involved, pedagogy, and so on. And took us like roughly half a year to a year, and then we finally built the diagnostics platform. So this is now a browser-based platform. People in the Volkshochschule can use this web application and diagnose people immediately. Like, what time saving? Oh my God, they don't need to read any task to them anymore. They just click on these buttons and every text gets read by the text-to-speech engine of the browser, because web speech API standard and so on. On top of that, we built an analytics dashboard, because these people in the classes, they want to see, okay, I have 20 people and I need to get an overview. Did my teaching improve their literacy, and so on, of course. And then we also built a mobile learning app, because that's the biggest problem, getting these 6.2 million people into the classes. And you have roughly 30,000 people in these classes per year. So you see, that's not much. So we tried to get some people on the anonymous side to start learning based on that competency model. And if you can see, if you see there's 4 applications, oh my God, it's so much. That was actually very much, and it was a very hybrid approach between a research project and actually industry-grade application development. So this is just partially a research project and much more about industry-grade software. And this is why we had such an interesting experience there. so many things, like we put gamification inside and try to make this a lovable product, and it's much more than the usual use case, because we have a different target group here. And when we talk about these people with low literacy, it's very hard to determine them as a target group, but basically it's like that. They have their goal of course, learning. We have our goal of teaching, and on the top side there needs something like, usually anonymity is a goal. Like it's a very problematic situation to out yourself as someone with low literacy, and at the same time you need to have accessibility features, something like every text needs to be spoken, because we have to assume that there is someone who just can't read a thing. And especially it's not that we have full illiteracy here, but consider there's like, people can read like 3 or 4 words in a row, that's okay, but once this gets a text, they're out. That's then too much. And at the same time, we want to have a high user experience, because frustration is usually what they already perceived at school and during other parts of their work environment or something, so we need to make them happy. And on the contrary, there are other things, like there are legal issues, because status of low literacy, it's still not 100% sure. We even did consulting and all that stuff, if this is sensitive data, but we're on the safe side, so we try to model everything as anonymous. At the same time, we have things like security. It's really hard to implement an authentication to someone who has not an email account or can't really even write their email account. At the same time, patronalization is something you need to avoid, because you don't want to make them feel like a baby, right? That's a very hard one on the target group, okay? And now I already have to skip lots of stuff, but I give you now some insight on things from the project. Accessibility. Ever heard of a screen reader? We have 722 accounts. Nobody uses accessibility settings. I know it's hard to confirm, because I still don't know if everything was detected correctly on the devices, but who actually uses a screen reader if not these people? I mean, this is the target group of the screen reader, right? But it's not the case. So what we did is we built our base components with text-to-speech buttons. It's basically just a button running on every linked text ID, this web speech API from the browser. So we just extended every text as our text, our buttons, and built for Markdown stuff some custom renderers. But it works actually quite nice. There is also some code you can look up later, or in the proceedings, everything will be linked. There's one caveat though. Text-to-speech, if you ever deal with text-to-speech, there are 2 ways. One way, you let it natively generate in the browser or on the mobile device. Second one is you have a server and you have something like Coquille TTS or something where you run your great cool ML models with your custom voice and then stream the response to the client. There is one advantage of the first one. It's native, it's built in, no network, it's locally, you can run it offline. Disadvantage, it's platform dependent. If the platform, if they have a crappy device, sorry for the term, but it's like that where even not a single voice is installed, they have to manually install the voice. May it be on Android, may it be on iOS, and that's platform settings, it's OS settings. We can't just bring that into our apps or on the browser. And the quality is highly varying. And then you have situations of people like they responded. We got response like the voices sound so bad. And yeah, we can control that. So that's a big disadvantage here. And this is why you could use and that's very big con on the web speech API. I want to write a pamphlet about this in the future. This is considered an open standard, but it's up to date, not possible to train and model your own voice and then make it available in the browser with the web speech API, although it's considered an open standard. And if you know who's actively working on this, then you know they also have different interests. With the streamed version of that, you of course have one voice you can deliver to everybody. If you have a nice speaker person, then you have also a nice experience. Plus, in the German teaching, if I want to spell the word F, then I say F, because that's a way different approach of teaching these letters. Text-to-speech, default voices, they don't know about that. You type F and let them speak and it say F. So it's completely not what we want. So this is usually what we want, but that requires, of course, one of these tools. You need to train them, you need a speaker, speaking the text, you need to train all that. It requires computation on your server and extra maintenance because it's another service you're running. So that's just about text-to-speech. Security is another problem. We have the authentication problem. Any method that requires text is problematic. Found no solution from our end. But of course, I looked at the FIDO Alliance, and the cool thing is they are the only guys, thank you, that currently consider even speech and language as part of the accessibility measures. If you read up any accessibility resource, it's always about blindness or color impairment or hearing or stuff, and low literacy is rarely considered, and it's the first resource I found that actually considered speech and language. That's really interesting. We'll put that in the proceedings definitely. Another big topic is legal. There is something called easy language, but it's not legally binding. So what we have to do is you can click on the example later on and just see how it looks like when you have a text-to-speech on a legally binding text on privacy or the imprint. That's unbearable. Nobody of these people will ever read that. And they don't even want to understand that because it's just too much, right? So this is a fundamental conflict we can't even resolve. And I wanted to show you something on the devices, but privacy and GDPR legal stuff also crushing in. So if we want to do research with them, with their data, our consultancy said we definitely need to double opt-in to have this 100% consent. Problem is, no email, no double opt-in. And that's okay if we want to our internal data collection, quality assurance, all that stuff, that's all also covered, but publishing data, aggregating, processing, and so on, not allowed. Pity for us, but that's how it is. Some more topics, too quick, fast. We had the problem that we missed a developer and we couldn't find anyone, and then COVID hit, and then we had lots of money, so what we did, outsourcing development. Great, we have very great experience with 2 companies, but there was also one example that was not very great, and I just want to summarize what were our experience with outsourcing. Very important to check your requirements with someone who is not working on the project so that you know that your requirements actually reflect what you want. Yeah? Try to negotiate short iterations, even if you outsource and they say like, yeah, we have our fixed schedule. Yeah, you bring in the money, and if you want 1-week iterations, which is really important because these people rarely know what you do or work on what you do, short iterations are very important. Demand, test, and coverage. I mean, there are many companies, especially here in Germany, that still don't do testing and test coverage. It's crazy, but you have to demand it at least to a certain extent to force them work more proficiently on that stuff. One thing would be really great if you find a company, if you're looking for these companies, you have to get in some offers and stuff. If there's a company that actually has open source code, that's a big plus. You rarely find that, but if they have, that's good because then you see actually if they can produce good code or not. One thing, don't outsource Arch and design. They will not be capable of doing anything that suits your needs. It will just become a maintenance disaster for you as well, and you can rewrite everything. Make sure they don't subcontract stuff. You have to make sure that in the contracts. We didn't do that, and they put that to the subcontractor to whatever country, I don't know, because they also did gatekeeping. I had no contact to the developer. It was always the engineering manager who talked to me, and this caused a lot of frustration. So this is really something we learn from. So this stuff, this will be put in the next contracts if we do outsourcing again. Coming from the project management, one technical thing. Do I have still a minute? Yeah, okay. Oh, cool. Yeah, so coming finally to some more technical thing, we did cross-platform development with React Native, and why we did that, because in the end, as I told you, we needed some more developer. Our first idea was to have someone with Kotlin something on Android and someone with Swift for iOS. So 2 people, 2 platforms would be great, but it was just me. So we had one code base to manage, and React Native is actually very great to do that. You have one language, you deploy to multiple code bases, and with Expo, that is a framework around React Native, it's really easy to get all these native dependencies for Android and Apple, iOS. It was really great. Plus, you have access to the whole NPM ecosystem, which is like, you know it yourself, it's like the super ton of billions of packages. And with a little bit more code, you can also deploy with React Native and Expo to the browsers. Unfortunately, not to Opera, not because you can't, but because Opera has no text-to-speech, which is for us like goodbye Opera. They just don't have it. They don't implement it. I wrote a text to the devs when it will come, and they never answered. And if you have some, if you have some additional packages from Microsoft, you can also deploy to native Windows, Apple. For Linux, there is an abandoned package for Qt, if you want to revive that. There are some more stuff in the proceedings, some advantages, pains and gains, and all that stuff, and there will be much more in the proceedings. Just rush over that now because I think it's rather interesting to hear your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?